Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier, and today we are thrilled to welcome a legendary comedian and magician. He has over 50 acting credits, including American Hot Wax with our own Moosie Drier. He's been a highly sought-after talk show guest with over 40 appearances with David Letterman. Please help us welcome Jeff Altman. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I haven't worked since Gunsmoke, so this is a real treat.
We're already off with the Altman jokes, my friend.
Well, I want to start by going back with you, Jeff. So you have a fascinating family history when I was reading about everything about you. So your dad was Arthur Altman, who was a famed magician, who had been friends with Harry Houdini, and your uncle was a talent scout at MGM, responsible for discovering, among others, Joan Crawford and Jimmy Stewart. So I want to start with your dad. So tell us about him and his relationship with Houdini.
Well, my father was born in 1906, and he became a magician through the influence of his brother Al. And by the time he was 16 or 17, he was pretty good with a deck of cards. And when he was 19 or 20, they were having a meeting in Worcester, Massachusetts, trying to assemble the first incarnation of the Society of American Magicians, which is the SAM is the big magicians kind of union club sort of thing. And there was no president. So Harry Houdini showed up in 1926. As I say, my father was 20, and he presented my father with the award of being the first president of the SAM in Worcester, Massachusetts, 1926, right before Houdini died.
Wow. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
So
it always fascinates me that my father knew Houdini.
Yeah.
So Jeff, man, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Moosie.
I have questions I'm supposed to ask you. But I want to just set those aside for a second. Jeff and I did this film together, and we worked on it for about seemingly a year or something like that. Although I don't remember how long. The movie seemed to go on and on and on, and Paramount Studios probably hate us because we just went way over budget. But I was 14 or 15 or something like that, and you and I had a couple scenes together. And you, seriously, I'm not just saying this, you were just always so good. And then you were one of Letterman's like regular guest. And I moved out when I was 16, and 12:30, 12:35, whatever time Letterman would come on, I wouldn't miss it for the life of me, right? Every time you came on, I'd put the bong down for you. No. No.
I put the bong up to go on.
Yeah, well, hey, whatever it takes.
Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the one, the only, Jeff Altman.
No, man, I've always really respected you. Always really liked you. I ran into you last time I saw you was in LA.
Yeah.
And you were just so gracious and gave me a hug, and we caught up a little bit, and I was always I like that guy. And because you're not just funny and talented, you've just always been a really good person to be around.
Well, thank you very much, Moosie. I feel the same way about you, and our scenes together were immortal.
Immortal. Hang on, wait.
Yeah.
That's you. That's me.
Yeah.
And you're playing some, fast talking music producer, and I end up ripping up your card.
I remember that scene, Moosie, very well. You were the head of the Buddy Holly fan club.
Yes, sir.
And I was promoting records, and I came up to you and I said, well, how many people do you have in your little club? And you said 5,000. And I went, 5,000. And then I started to follow you around, and I finally gave you my card, which you, of course, destroyed.
Yeah, well, anyway, look, my name is Lenny Ritchell Records, so why don't you just give me a call for something?
Buddy Holly lives.
more about Floyd later or something like that. I did his next movie too. It was a really interesting shoot. Both of them, American Hot Wax and Hollywood Nights, was his next
Hollywood
film.
Nights.
Enough about us, more about you. So your uncle, did you grow up learning a lot of like the inside business of MGM and all that?
Not really. As we should establish that my uncle was the head of talent for MGM on the East Coast back in the, even as far back as the 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s. And then he retired, I think, in 1959. But in that time span, he discovered a lot of people. He discovered Joan Crawford and Lucille Ball and Jimmy Stewart, and as Jonathan mentioned. And he was pretty instrumental in getting a lot of major careers on the road. But growing up, I just knew that he was a talent scout, which is a term he actually created. And by the way, Jonathan, is that the Temps in the background or the Four Tops?
American Hot Wax.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious! Look at that! Wow.
We're gonna talk about that movie a lot more, but yes.
Yeah. So I grew up knowing my uncle was a talent scout, and I was so naive when I got to Hollywood in 1974 that I thought that just mentioning his name would instantly usher me into show business. So, I mean, I remember driving over to Jimmy Stewart's house and knocking on the door and saying, "Hi, I'm Jeff Altman. Al Altman was my uncle. Can you put me in show business?" And they just looked at me like I was insane.
First of all, I mean, you knocked on Jimmy Stewart's door, right? And did he answer?
Yeah.
That those days have changed. Obviously, he's no longer here, but I mean, just that right there.
Absolutely, you couldn't get near a celebrity's house now.
Sure.
I want to ask, when did you first start learning? Because you learned magic and everything from a young age, right? I mean, when did you first start learning that?
I think I started getting serious about it about my senior year of high school, and then my freshman year of college. I was down in Baltimore, and there's two or three really good card guys, magicians down there, and I got very friendly with them, and they taught me a lot of stuff in addition to what my father had shown me.
So, did you ever consider doing anything else in your life, or was it just predetermined you're going to be in show business? Because you're made to entertain. I mean, I'm sorry, you would have been a horrible real estate agent or anything else.
Well, that's what I'm doing now, Moosie. So no, I'm kidding.
let me finish.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I knew. I think sophomore year of college, I visited the West Coast and visited the Magic Castle, which you are aware of. And I thought to myself, by the time I left, I wanted to be something in show business, probably a funny magician. And that went away pretty quickly.
Well, when you got there, so you started doing the comedy in like the early 70s at the Comedy Store. So I'm just curious, did you remember what your early act was like? What your first act was?
Do you remember David Fry, the impressionist?
Yeah.
Yep.
I did most of his acts when I first got on stage. I did impressions and stuff and told a few jokes.
Yeah.
And but then it developed into more an expansive act. And I stopped doing so many impressions and stopped doing David Fry's act. And that was like 1974, 75. I came out in 74 and Letterman came out in 75.
Big time comedians really followed you and loved watching you. There was a thing like Jay Leno used to invite me when we were doing our movie to go to the Improv after shoot. Hey, Moosie, I'm doing a set tonight. Come. And so I would go. I feel like there were two camps, maybe. Like there was the Bud Friedman's camp and Mitzi's Comedy Store camp.
That's right on the money.
Okay. You and Letterman were Comedy Store.
Right.
He made a lot of Bud Friedman jokes or little jabs at Bud Friedman on his show about watering down drinks and all that stuff over at the Improv. So two different camps.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah.
Jay was, so good at stand-up that he could do both clubs. But Letterman and myself and George Miller and a ton of other guys all stayed pretty much around the Comedy Store.
Everything that I've been reading, like all the comedians love your sets.
How many folks here tonight have a dad that wears his pants like this? They get into their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, the pants start creeping up, they start getting nervous when they get mad, and now you're like 6'2", 180. They're shaking, they're at the dinner table, coffee's flying out of their nose. It's a totally different confrontation, right? It's like,
hey, Dad, sorry, dude, just put a dent in your new truck.
look, don't give me that kind of bullshit, buddy boy, because I'll flip you like a cheese omelet, pal. I'll hit you so hard your kids will be born dizzy, and I can do it, you little bastard.
But was there anyone in particular that you used to love watching?
Oh gosh, there was a guy from New York City named Lenny Schultz, and Lenny Schultz was positively crazy. And do you remember him, Lucy?
I totally remember Lenny Schultz. I'm trying to remember if he was on. He wasn't. He didn't do Make Me Laugh, that show.
Yes, he
did. He? Okay, that's where I know him from.
No, he didn't.
He was in that.
Yes.
That pool, swimming around at that time
Yes.
with those guys. Yeah, okay. You would come on and at times be pretty insane and punch yourself in the face or whatever, and do these things.
Well, I used to open my act. I would come out and I say, have you folks ever been at a Hollywood party, maybe, and wanted to try this silly little party gag? And I would take my head and smash it on a bar stool, and down I'd go.
That's right. Don't do this or something like that.
Yeah, don't ever do this.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I was very physical, and I did a lot of stuff that I can't do anymore, which is why I don't do stand-up anymore. But yeah, it was pretty silly.
You did a spot on Carson impersonation.
Who's here tonight? Doc is here tonight? Doc is not here tonight. Ed is not here. Who's here? Paul Shaver in the banner. Crazy guys are crazy, aren't they?
Mr. Altman.
I was going to say that would be frightening.
Right. Well, I think Rich Little eventually got in trouble doing Johnny and doing something silly about Johnny. And he went from kind of guest hosting the Tonight Show to never coming back.
How much interaction did you have with Johnny Carson? Like in your before and after you come on, or in real life?
Well, I had a one real interesting experience that I'll never forget, and I'll mention this. We are standing backstage in 1991. I was on a show on NBC called Nurses. I'm standing backstage at the affiliates convention at Radio City Music Hall, or it was either Carnegie Hall or Radio City Music Hall. It was a big venue. And I'm standing backstage, and there's Johnny standing there, and he looks over at me, and I was wearing sneakers, and he goes, "Hey Jeff, are those the only shoes you got?" And I laughed, and then I had somebody go run and go get me a deck of cards, and I sidled up to Johnny, and I did this card move, and I said, "Johnny, you ever do one of these?" Because I knew he was a magician, and he said, "Yeah, come on backstage, and let me show you what I do." And he took me way backstage. I mean, backstage of backstage. And we had this little magic session together for about, 10, 15 minutes. And the next thing I know, he walked out in front of the affiliates, announced his retirement.
Oh my!
Oh
wow!
Man.
I mean, it was really a momentous day in my life and the lives of everybody who carried that show.
Jeff, that is monumental. That's history. It's crazy, but it makes sense that he can compartmentalize. He knew he was about to go out and do that. But his farewell was, I think it had the country tearing up.
Oh, no question. This was, yes, I think this was before the on-air. It may have been in the papers or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or speculation that he was going to retire, but nobody knew for sure, including NBC. And
that's
so
really cool.
Yeah.
You're backstage trading songs with John Lennon, basically,
Right.
Johnny Carson, and you're doing your magic. Wow.
Well, how did you become friends with Letterman?
We were both doing stand-up at the Comedy Store back in the mid-'70s, and we just hit it off and became really good friends. And then we did a show in the summer of 1977 called the Starland Vocal Band. Remember them? Afternoon Delight.
Mm-hmm.
They had a song called Afternoon Delight. And anyway, we had their summer show, And we did that and became closer friends. And then we've remained better and better friends over the years. And I would say that he's probably one of my 2 or 3 best friends.
Oh, that's fantastic. You were a regular on the Bill Cosby variety show, Cause, very early in your career. So just how did you get onto that and some of your memories of being on it? Because there was some incredible names that I was looking at. There were Betty White, Madeline Kahn, Milton Berle appearing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I was on the show with a comedian friend of mine named Tim Thomerson. Moosie, does that ring a bell?
No, not that one. Nope.
Okay.
Lenny
Anyway,
Schultz.
Tim Thomerson was, in my opinion, the funniest stand-up I ever saw. He was more well known for his acting than he was for his stand-up, but his stand-up was as good as it gets. Anyway, we were both on the Cosby Show, called Cos, as you mentioned, and it was an introduction to show business. It was 1976, I think, and I had never been, and he taught me a lot of stuff. I mean, whatever you think about Bill Cosby, he was very good to me, and we became friendly.
Comedians say that he was very gracious to them, and giving time and giving exposure.
No question about it. And I remember once being in Las Vegas back in the 80s, I guess. And you know who the comedian Rita Rudner is?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Rita Rudner and I are co-headlining the Sands Hotel. And I'm backstage. And I get a call on the phone. And somebody says, all right, the phone is for you. It's Bill Cosby. So I think it's one of my buddies screwing around.
Sure.
And he called, I get on the phone. He says, hey, it's Bill Cosby. I'd love to have you come down and see the show. And I said, well, Bill, I'm working up here at the Sands. I think our shows kind of, splice over one another. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get down there. Well, geez, I'd love to have you come down and see the show, So he was very gracious. He was very, very good to me. And I'll never forget that. It's of course, we know what else happened in his life, right. And that's a shame, but
hey, that's a tough one. I'm sure it's for everybody. He was just a warm, comfortable presence.
Yep.
Felt safe and the whole thing. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But so back to the variety thing. So you mentioned the Starlight vocal band.
Yeah.
Afternoon Delight was a huge hit.
Right.
and when I was a kid, I think I didn't realize that on 93 KHJ, the song was about just, having sex in the daytime, but whatever. They got their own show.
If you can believe that, yeah.
And was Letterman on that as well?
Yep. Me and Dave and a guy named Mark Russell was on the show. Mark Russell was a comedian, a famous comedian in Washington, D.C. He would play the piano and do political kind of,
commentary joke. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk more variety? Because I think we're probably going to get into the Pink Lady.
I have to ask about that. But yeah, we've had Mark Evanier on the show. We've had him on, and he spoke a little bit about it. And it was such a legendary show, and a lot of. So how did you get involved with it in the first place? And I'm just curious, did you even hear of Pink Lady beforehand?
Wait just a second. You got to stop. You had Mark Evanier on your show?
Yeah.
He's a very interesting guy, isn't he?
Yes, he was great. He told some great stories. He
knows an awful lot about show business.
Yeah, you know what's the best thing with him? Every single time he said, oh, I'm this happened. I'm not going to mention any names. And then he said, but it was, and then he told the name.
To make it be a guest star on the show, and I'm not going to mention who it is. It was Tony Randall. And the minute he,
yeah, no, I had a holding deal with NBC at the time, and they Fred Silverman wanted to introduce these girls to American TV, and they were like the biggest stars. They were to Japan what the Beatles were to the Western world. Anyway, they thought if they could break these girls in America, it would just, it would turn into be, something spectacular. And anyway, it turned out to be anything but spectacular, despite the fact that NBC spent millions of dollars on this show, bringing guests on like Larry Hagman, who they had to give him like a 3 picture deal to come on the show to
Right.
do. It was crazy. I was introduced to them as I kind of got accustomed to the show.
So for our audience, our guest of honor here, Jeff, had his own primetime NBC variety show with these two pretty girls next to him. What was the full title? Was it Jeff Altman's and the Pink Ladies, or was it Pink Ladies?
The technical name of the show was Pink Lady, but they but if you open TV Guide, it said Pink Lady and Jeff.
Okay. Okay.
And the show was so bad, Moosie, that I don't know if you remember this, that Saturday Night Live did a sketch on the show.
Yep.
Yeah. And they called it Pink Lady and Carl. And Carl was Carl Sagan.
Oh, the astronomer.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Here's the thing, Jeff. What were your chances of chemistry? Let's just start there.
And one of the girls had a boyfriend, and the other girl didn't. And the girl that didn't, I think, was me. Their names were Me and Kay.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And Me, I believe, was the prettier of the two, and the friendlier of the two, and the sweeter of the two. And the other one just cried all day about missing her boyfriend and not wanting to do this show and be in America. So it was a really strange deal. And, I had to get them through all this dialogue and stuff, which they had to learn phonetically, as well as the songs they sung.
Right. But I always felt like that wasn't a fair. No, I have to feel like it wasn't a fair situation for Jeff Altman. They didn't give you much of a chance.
Well, they signed me up for 13, Lucy, and they only did 5. I mean, they taped 6, but only 5 of those shows aired.
Okay. I remember watching them. I remember.
I did too. I remember I watched it as well.
NBC, I think that they had a pool. I mean, there was Flip Wilson, and there was, you walk down that hall before you turn and you get to Laughing on the right. You've already passed Johnny's stage. You've got, and in between with the Bob Hope mural or whatever on the stages.
Yeah.
That was just a treasure chest of proven longevity in that building.
Yes.
I just think there should be a documentary called Pink Ladies and maybe Carl. Keep you out of it. But
actually, Moosie, there have been, not, I wouldn't call them documentaries, but there have been a lot of, I've done a few podcasts where people, all they want to talk about is that show. And there's been several semi sort of docu-drama television things about Pink Lady, because it was such an awful show. In fact, TV Guide, I think, rated it the 35th worst television show in history.
You can see
congratulations
them on YouTube, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, congratulations. That's an honor. Pink
you
Lady, they do reunions from time to time. Have you ever?
No.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
I do want to get back to American Hot Wax.
Well, everybody's talking about American Hot Wax, Paramount's new flick that rips the lid off the origins of the rock and roll generation.
Because it's such a fascinating movie. I remember seeing that movie. So it's so hard to find now because of the music rights. So I just wondered, what are some of your other memories of making that film?
Well, a lot of my memories, but honestly, were some of the scenes I had with Moosie, and the scene he mentioned where I'm trying to get in this door, and there's this this workman just scrubbing up on a door, and I'm trying to bribe him to get in.
Hey, buddy boy, how you doing? Just turn this key for me, and I'll be upstairs like, huh? Can you hear me? Hey, you know who I am? Hey. Oh, I know what you mean. Little 5-spot, huh? Little 5-spot ought to turn this key. How you like this, Gramps? This'll buy you a few cigars. Huh? All right. A 10-ski ought to turn this lock. A little 10-ski. A little 10-ski. Here we go. This is for you. That's real, Pops. Now open this thing. Hey, come here, Gramps. Hey, you forgot to open this. Hey, open the door!
And I had a few scenes, but the two of the major scenes I had were with Moosie. Moosie was one of the stars of the movie. He was the guy who kind of showed that the youth of this country was going to produce something new, and Alan Freed, who the movie was really about, called it rock and roll.
Well, William Fraker was the
Yes.
the DP. He
Yeah.
came off an Oscar nomination for Heaven Can Wait before that, which was one of my favorite films as a youngster, and he also did Hollywood Nights. And you know, it wasn't historically accurate, apparently.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. This song came out this year. How could this artist be over here now, or something like that?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
But I just enjoy it. Monkeys don't play basketball or whatever else is in the movies that we see. You know, like just enjoy it. Anyway.
Yeah. I thought by and large it was a very good film.
Yeah.
I thought it was held together well. I mean, look at the people that were in there. I mean, Fran and Jay Leno and
Alan is on the air right now.
Yeah, I know he's on.
And he can't be bothered. No one goes and sees
Is Alan still on the air?
Yeah, Alan's still on the air.
Hey,
See, Alan is still on the air.
I know that, but I'm just going to poke my head in and just wave to
You
him.
poke your head in and it's going to get chopped off. Now, no one sees Alan Freed while he's on the air.
Lorraine Newman and all the music stars that were in it. I mean, you know, it was pretty fascinating how they were able to get all those people together.
Yeah, and you know who had a cameo in that movie? Well, it wasn't a cameo. It was just a small part at the time. It was before he was famous. It was Cameron Crowe, you know, director, screenwriter. Yeah.
Did you see who, according to the internet, which who knows, who you beat out for the part? Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot.
Oh, me? I thought you meant Jeff.
Yes, Moosie. Yeah, he was also up for your role.
Yeah, and the front man of Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right.
He wrote about me in his book, and he said how badly he wanted this film, and they sent him to wardrobe. He was really close to getting it, and then I came in at the last second, whatever, and I booked it. That's what made him say, "Screw this! I'm going to go into music."
Can we just agree that it worked out for him and Anthony wins?
Anyway, Jeff
Moosie,
Altman.
did you get? I'm trying to remember. I always forget his name, and I know you were close to him, and I want to ask you about that. Who played Alan Freed?
Oh, Tim McIntyre.
Tim McIntyre.
Yeah.
Who had a very, very early passing.
Yeah.
And did you get friendly with him?
You know what? Not really. Not like how I used to actually go hang out with Jay Leno a little bit afterwards, and
Right.
And maybe a couple other people. But no, while we were working together, we were friendly because he was kind of a hard nut to crack. That doesn't mean he was cold, and he was super, super sweet. But I think he had his, I don't know, he took on a huge role
unto himself.
Yeah,
unto himself, kind of.
Yeah, this one scene he and I had in the DJ booth. Floyd Mutrix was cracking the whip on us, hard. We were kind of just trying to find our way, but the film's rolling. We're burning 35 millimeter film. And finally, he just Floyd had a little bit of a tantrum. And then McIntyre pulled me aside and said, "Listen, let's do A, B, and C." And I threw, "How about D and E and F?" And he said, "That's great." And we did it. But he took on a lot.
Moosie, you were so good in that scene. I remember it was tearful. It was you talked about his death, and you talked about Buddy Holly's death, and it was a great scene. I remember
appreciate
it very
that.
well.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, just like Jackie Cooper, they pulled me aside and they told me they had to shoot my dog.
Thank you, pal.
Anyway, no, that's not true at all. So, all right, we whipped American Hot Wax to its death. You went knocking on Jimmy Stewart's door and ended up having a variety show on prime time. And then look at the people you worked with.
What about Rodney Dangerfield? Easy money.
I was this guy. I was his next door neighbor, and the scenes that I was in, luckily, were pretty funny and pretty well written. One of the scenes, I take my dog out to take a dump, and Rodney comes out and says, "Hey, what are you doing? I'll tell you. You can't be in front of the house,
great.
okay? All right, give him one of these."
And that's good.
So we had several scenes together, but the one scene that I think people who saw the movie remember.
I'm nervous enough this morning. Are you kidding?
Hey, Nervous. Maybe you need a little smoke, a little tootsarootski, you know, a little ups, a little downs, a little something. I got anything you need.
What are you talking to me about drugs for? I got my daughter here. She's 12 years old.
Hey, look, you got a connection in the family already. Stick with it. Hey, but look, just this once, I'll tell you what, my friend. Let me be Santa Claus, okay? There's one, there's two. It's from me to you. We'll take a hike. Come on, Poochie.
It was a lot of fun doing the movie, and I had several instances of being around Rodney. I did one of his first specials on HBO.
But he's a big kind of guy. Okay, Jeff Altman, make him happy. Okay, here we are.
It was me and Seinfeld and Bob Nelson and do you remember Bob Nelson?
I do. I remember Bob Nelson, and there was like these names. There was like a team of stand-ups like Gary Muldeer and
yes. Did you know that he's still working? Gary Muldeer is still working. He opens for Johnny Mathis, who's still working.
Yeah.
So I mean, between the two of them, I think they're about 200 years old.
Yeah. Right back to Make Me Laugh. It's like that Make Me Laugh. Did you do that show?
Strangely, I never did. I never did Make Me Laugh.
Odd. Yeah.
Well, I have to make sure we ask about this. You know, you had a recurring role in Dukes of Hazzard, Boss Hogg's nephew. So that show was always ridiculously fun. How was that doing it?
That was some of the most fun I actually ever had in show business. That was
really?
As strange as that may sound, it's true. The actors on that show were actually very, very good at what they did. You had Jim Best and you had Sorrel Book, who played Boss Hogg, and it was. I just had a great time doing that show, and they still have reunions and get-togethers, and they have three places called Cooters. Cooter was one of the people on the show, and he went on to become a U.S. congressman from Georgia, and then after he got out of Congress, he invented these clubs called Cooters. There's three of them, one in Nashville, one in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and one in Luray, Virginia, the big ones in Luray, Virginia. And we still get together, and it's unbelievable. I mean, like 15,000 people showed up to one of these events. And it's just, guys come up to you and go, pardon me, would you sign an autograph? I said, what's your name? Ed. I said, what have you been doing, Ed? And he said, well, working on my truck. And how about you dropping them panties? A lot of those people.
Yeah. Give Ed a break. All right. He's had a tough, one of the hoses that keeps coming off in his truck.
Yep.
Yeah, but I hear you. You're so amazing. Like when you were doing your Rodney impersonation, man, I closed my eye. You're spot on. It's still, you sound exactly like when we first came on to the Zoom, and we didn't see you yet, but I can hear you. I'm like, oh my goodness, Jeff Altman sounds exactly the same. I wonder if people ever try to trick you, because you've done a little bit of Carson here, a little Rodney, and somebody else while we're talking. I feel like, I wonder if everyone, like, what would you think that Carson would say if he, try to get you to do your impersonations? But I'm not going to go that way. We're not going to be cheap like that.
Okay.
But what would Buddy Hackett do if? See that?
I had a movie Cos. They also gave me another job for like 2 weeks, and it was the opening monologue or the voiceover for the show, The Gong Show. Remember The Gong Show?
Sure. JP
And
Morgan.
so I was the guy who went from Hollywood. It's The Gong Show, and then I remember seeing the very first show, and Buddy Hackett made just a fool out of this poor little girl who came on to sing a song, and she wasn't bad. And Buddy just kept saying, "Yeah, you just don't go into show business because you just show," it was just all that. And I thought to myself, what an ass, he didn't have to say that.
No. Boy, do I remember The Gong Show, man. JP Morgan and
yeah.
I feel like it had a little bit of a match game drinky feel to it, but who knows?
Moosie, I got to tell you something. You look, I was expecting an older guy to come on the show. You still look very young.
God, I love you, and thank you. I don't look any any closer. I appreciate that. All right. So you did Soul Man, this film.
Yeah.
What can go wrong doing blackface? How did that film get any backlash?
I'm surprised it didn't get more. I can't remember the guy who played
Thomas Howell.
Thomas Howell, yeah.
Yeah. Did you know him, Moosie?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And he played in blackface. And it was about this white guy that took some potion and became a black dude. And it was strange. I played their landlord.
Roommate was a
What?
a black Negro.
A black Negro? And it was set in Boston. And I can remember they let me ad lib a little bit. And at one point, they said, well, we're not paying our rent. We can't afford to pay it. And I looked up, and I was smoking a cigar, and I looked up and I went, holy chowder.
Oh.
I said, holy, like clam chowder? I said, holy chowder. And I had to talk in a Boston accent, and it was a lot of fun doing that film.
That's fun. That's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, rightfully so. It got some backlash.
You couldn't make that movie today, could
No,
you?
definitely not.
Couldn't, shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You had mentioned Nurses, and it was a spinoff of Empty Nest, and that show kept changing the cast members throughout its entire run. So you were there for the first season. What do you remember about that show? Because it seemed so chaotic that it was just, let's replace this one, let's replace that one.
Well, my story was kind of odd in that I wasn't nuts about the people who were writing that show. Mm-hmm. In every show, there'd be some reference to roadkill. And so we were coming down the road, and there we go. We looked off to the side as roadkill. So we picked it up and, they tried to make jokes out of that phrase roadkill in every episode. Yeah. So they wrote me this long thing, and I think there was a roadkill joke in it. And I actually took the paper and said, take this back to the writers. I ain't doing it. So Whit Thomas Harris doesn't operate that way. And so I did not come back for a second season.
Wow.
One fun show from the past was Solid Gold. And you were part of this show, right? Solid Gold?
I was the comedian on Solid Gold.
You were the comic.
Good crowd. Look, I just got back from watching a scary movie about Roman Polanski. It's called Friday, She Was 13. Take my wife. Take a hike.
So you had a good experience on that?
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure. I think my buddy Rick Dees. Remember Rick Dees?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Everybody remembers Rick.
Yeah.
But he and I are pretty good friends. And I don't know if he was hosting the show. I think Marilyn McCoo was hosting the show at the time. And I did a lot of characters and goofy stuff. And, it was a lot of fun. It was the first job I got after a Pink Lady, because I didn't think I was going to work again. And then I got this call to be the comedian on Solid Gold.
Wow, Solid Gold.
Well, Rick Dees had that big hit too. So Disco Duck.
Duck, yeah.
Right. So it's you mentioned working, because I was looking at your the IMDb page. You've done so many guest starring roles, and you've worked with such diverse and huge people. Look at some of the names I was looking at: B. Arthur, Robin Williams, and even Hulk Hogan. So, I mean, what are some of the more memorable roles that you've had?
Well, certainly working with Robin, who was a friend, was good on Mork and Mendy. And of course, being around Mendy wasn't, it was kind of easy on the eyes. Right. And so I really enjoyed that show. I had a major part as the guest star on that show, and I was trying to discover whether or not he was an alien or not. Mm-hmm. And I would follow him around, and we had this scene where I was walking around picking up information, and he would follow me right behind me, and I couldn't see him because he was so surreptitious. But that was a lot of fun doing that show.
Yeah. We've had some of the people who worked on they were showrunners on Happy Days and went on to Mork and Mindy.
Yeah.
Because it was all in that same Gary Marshall family, and great stories from that. How Robin Williams came about and he had like moments to slap together a network run through to see if they found their mark. I don't think anyone else on the planet, no pun intended, could have done what Robin Williams did. He was just insane.
He was a genius, and he he made some mistakes along the way. Very often he his brain worked so fast that if you had a joke that followed what he was improvising on stage, you might hear your own material.
Yeah.
but there's no question that Robin was a genius, and probably the only guy who no one could follow. I mean, you could go on and put all the people in the world you wanted on stage, and Robin could come up and close the show.
Well, there's nowhere to go from there. How do you follow him? He's already hit. He's bounced off every part of the ceiling on the soundstage. Where are you going to go? And which reminds
exactly
me,
right.
But you were also one of those people, Jeff. When you were on Letterman, you were every guest, whether they're friends with the host or not, you could tell. Okay, there's predetermined subject matters, shtick, whatever. But whenever there's something that clearly that wasn't written or planned,
right?
You could divide the people between the ones who suddenly it's flat airtime because they didn't expect the non-expected, or the really quick in the moment Jeff Altmans, Robin Williams. You were so fast, and you were on your toes, and it didn't matter if you and Dave went off your pre-planned, structure, what you were going to talk about. Man.
Well, he would ask me to do sometimes the same things on every show. He used to have me tell this story about being a flight attendant on a plane, and he would make me do Nixon every time I came on the show.
Just his personal favorite stuff. He
just liked to hear it. He didn't care whether the audience liked it or not.
And you know what you do? You go do Nixon on his show.
You go do Nixon.
That's right.
Like he brought out Jay Thomas every year to do the Lone Ranger story.
The Lone Ranger.
But
That's
he had his favorites that were like, the people who in the limelight were yourself, Jeff, and some others, that he had on as regulars. Even Jay Leno before it got to be a competitive thing for 11:30. But he also had his like private collection of comics he would like to have on that maybe weren't mainstream. Like, do you remember Johnny Dark?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this is not, I don't mean that as a dig to Johnny Dark, that maybe he wasn't as well known as the rest of you guys, but like Letterman was loyal to his stand-up buddies.
Yep. I think that was one of the, even though I did the Tonight Show with Jay before he was the official guest host, Jay, and Jay's a great guy, but he didn't stick with his friends like Dave did. Dave kind of kept me around, and George Miller around, and Tom Dreesen around, and so you're absolutely right, Moosie. That's the way it went down.
Yeah, he had a loyal collection of talent that he would bring with him. Tom Dreesen, right. Yeah. And I only remember Johnny Dark because we were neighbors, and he would
no kidding.
Hey, yeah. We lived across the street from each other. Very, very nice man.
Yeah, he brought Johnny on in one capacity of being on the show, where Johnny was this guy who worked in a store, and then he'd have him do, talk to him. Johnny go, listen, what's the matter? Were you coming in the store? You trying to find out some books or something? And then David go, how about a song, Johnny? And Johnny would burst into this. Some enchanted evening. And it was just nutty.
That's crazy. Wasn't Johnny Dark like also like the oldest page also on Letterman?
Oh,
exactly.
Yes, that was a bit. Yes.
Yes.
He
was great.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And that's what I was trying to say, because he used Johnny in some very strange situations, and every one of them for me worked. It was funny.
Yes.
Love it. So do you still keep in touch with Dave Letterman, or I know he's slowed down his, he doesn't have to show up somewhere every single day. Good for him. He earned it. You keep in touch with him?
Yeah, I actually, it's strange you say that. I'm going to speak to him later today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Send our love.
Yeah,
I will do it.
Yeah.
I do want to ask about you something a little bit different, because at one point you were the spokesperson for Arby's, Tostitos, Valvoline, and Budweiser. So all those, how did that all come about, and what's it like to be the face of the companies?
Well, I think one of the reasons that I didn't become a household name was because I spread myself so thin. You take a look at Dave Letterman. David knew what he wanted to do exactly when he came out to Hollywood. He knew he wanted to be a talk show host and maybe be the next Johnny Carson. And sure enough, that's kind of what happened. I got out to Hollywood. I said, geez, I just want to work. So I started doing commercials. And that was the first thing I ever did in show business. I did a Wendy's commercial. And you want a really good hamburger? Bite me. Anyway,
I remember this.
So, and then I started doing a lot of commercials, and I kind of a reputation as one of the big commercial guys in about the 25 to 35-year-old range.
You think motor oil is just motor oil? Oh, there's motor oil and there's Valvoline. You like? You never know what you'll get. Thoughts? No, actually, Bud Light.
I was very lucky that I did a lot of that because it paid the bills.
Yeah. I have to ask, what perks come with being the company spokesperson?
Well, in the case of Arby's, a lot of hamburger.
Yeah.
A lot of roast beef. That wasn't even real roast beef. We had to say something to because it was in Canada. They couldn't let the commercials go because it wasn't actual roast beef. It was kind of somehow simulated roast beef. I guess they've changed that by now, but
well, you really know how to sell the product. Funny. Yeah, I know. That's what you do. That's what you do. You make a buck. I did that, back then. I was Carl. I was a Carl's Jr. guy.
Didn't you, Moosie?
Yeah. But and you smile, you love it, you chew it, you cut, you spit it out, and you write your account number on the back of the check when it shows up in the mail.
That's right.
So you moved to North Carolina, right?
I moved to North Carolina about 10 years ago. I was performing in Las Vegas in 2015, and a girl that I knew in high school and her daughter had come out to the West Coast to do a little sort of tour of Los Angeles and Seattle, and they decided that they would come see my show in Vegas on their way home. Well, before my wife Bonnie left, we kind of struck up a pretty close relationship, rekindled actually some of and it just felt like I was, here's a girl from high school who I knew very well, and the next thing I know, we're in love and married. So what can I tell you? And we were trying to figure, because I knew I was going to retire from stand-up in the next few years, and which actually was 2019. I guess I did my last show.
That's what got you to North Carolina. That's how you found your person.
Well, we were trying to figure out where to live, and I said I'd had enough of L.A. I couldn't stand the traffic and the all the stuff that you have to deal with on a daily basis, right?
Well, I've noticed since you've left, there's one less car out there. So,
so that helps.
Yeah. Although I think it might have maybe in the fire or the mudslide or the earthquake or whatever else. Yeah.
But you guys have had some real problems out there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Jeff, are you still performing magic now?
Yes, that's all I do now. I take a deck of cards and I go out and do parties, corporate events, and that kind of stuff. But I'm not a stage magician.
Right.
For the folks who are listening, it's close up sleight of hand. I don't know if you remember a fellow named Ricky Jay.
I don't think I know.
Does that ring a bell?
No, but I love sleight of hand magic, I gotta say.
Yeah. So everything I do is just done with a pack of playing cards. So
it's how you bonded with Carson, man. That is an amazing story. It's how you.
Yeah, that's one of the best.
So your career, your life, Jeff, and I'm so happy to see how healthy and vibrant you are to this very day. So with all this that you've done in your life, very impressive, very enjoyable to watch. Are you going to write a book? Is there a memoir in the works?
Letterman keeps asking me to write something about the stories that I have. I'm too lazy to write a book. You got to be more energetic than me to write a book.
Well, most everybody just has somebody kind of, you probably just sit around, an hour at a time and go, oh yeah, one time I saw, Gary Shanley kick, somebody in the ass or something, or I don't know, just some story of yours.
Yeah.
And then they do it. They put it in order. They write.
We should have maybe this show transcribed and put it out there.
Yeah. Jeff, how can people follow you on social media?
Well, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on X or TikTok or whatever that human being, if you can call him that, is devised. But you can just, YouTube is the best place to look for me.
And you have a website.
And my website, jeffaltmanmagic.com.
jeffaltmanmagic.com. Wow, we are lucky, man. We are lucky to have you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm the one who's lucky to see you, Moosie, and to meet Jonathan. This has been terrific.
Yeah, this has been great. Just been like I love it when it's effortless.
Yeah,
Moosie, do you live in the valley?
I live in the hills between, now I should say, it's in between the Sunset Fire and the Pacific Palisades Fire. That's where I live, right in between. I was like,
I know right where you live. I used to there used to be a deli up there that I used to go
there still is. Yeah. The Glen Deli. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a great restaurant, Vibrato. And it's a cool little shop. When I first went up there, I was walking not to the deli, but past the deli, and Gene Hackman was sitting at a table alone with the LA Times. Remember newspapers where you actually filled the paper? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It was Gene Hackman, man, Poseidon Adventure and everything else. I just went, oh my gosh, this is where I live right now. I mean, I'm going to get kicked out of the neighborhood. This I don't belong. Anyway, wow.
Jonathan, have you got time for a 30-second story?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So Jeff, I can listen to your stories all day long.
Okay. So I'm up at that deli, Moosie. I'm up at that deli, and I'm sitting with Mort Saul. I think it might have been the magician Ricky Jay and one other person, and Tom Snyder. Remember Tom Snyder?
Yeah, he lived right up there. Yeah.
Okay, so he walks in, and they invite him to come sit down. And I said, Tom, my name's Jeff Altman. I'm a friend of David Letterman's. In fact, I delivered a car to you. Now let me explain that. David Letterman bought Tom Snyder when he replaced Tom Snyder in that time slot on NBC. He did something very nice for Tom Snyder. He went out and bought him a completely restored 1960 Cadillac.
Wow.
So I sit down. Tom Snyder sits down. I say, Tom, I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do, of course. But I'm the one that went and scouted out your 1960 Cadillac. And he looked at me and he goes, you know, that was the biggest piece of shit I've ever owned. And I just couldn't believe he would say that,
Oh my God.
You can't fault him for the honesty of it, but
no.
But Letterman, I think I remember Letterman was a fan of the Tomorrow Show, of Snyder's show, and plus he's going to take what a classy move on his point. Who cares if the car was a piece of crap to Tom Snyder? That was a classy move on Letterman, but hilarious that Snyder told
didn't
that.
Letterman help put Tom Snyder back on the air, like later on when Tom Snyder followed him for a brief bit?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I vaguely remember something about that because Dave did like Tom Snyder because Snyder put Dave on the show back in the 70s before Dave was famous to talk about the Comedy Store.
Oh, wow. See all that loyalty there. The whole late night wars with Leno and Letterman and everything else. Letterman was so loyal to his people in his personal life, and he was so loyal to NBC. He stuck there. He was crushing it at 12:30 a.m.
Yes,
for that network for years. And I have a lot of respect for Jay Leno, and not to say that Jay didn't deserve it either. I mean, I know it's hard. It's a coin toss, and I'm glad I was never in that position to have these network decisions to be made. But Letterman, I feel like for such a loyal guy, the network really didn't. They weren't loyal to him. And I know he ended up doing pretty well. He got on the CBS and all, but the dream was to have the Tonight Show for anybody.
Yeah, that's right.
When Letterman first came on, I had never seen a show like that. When he first did late night, it was so different than anything else that was on late night at the time. It was just so inventive.
Yeah, there's no question about it. He reinvented late night TV. Taking a little bit from Steve Allen and a little bit from here and a little bit from there. But what came out in the end was uniquely Dave's.
Yeah. And I think it was a little bit of a, hey, let's just take some chances. He tried a morning show and that didn't work, and he was great as a stand-up, and he was a terrific, guest on other people's show. And you knew he belonged somewhere. And I guess, he did take from a little bit of Steve Allen, maybe even maybe not Jack Parr, but Steve Allen kind of took some risk, but he took it over the top with stupid human tricks and stupid pet tricks and throwing things. He would just throw things out of a building window and just shoot it coming down and crashing. The simplest freaking thing was so interesting to watch.
Wasn't it?
Anyway,
Leno would always say, well, it's, Letterman is a broadcaster and I'm a stand-up comic. I mean, that's the way it is,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. You ought to have your own radio show where you are the only person on the show, but you have all these people. Is it Phil Henry? Do you ever know who that guy is?
Oh, I've had dinner with Phil Henry.
Yeah, that's a talented. That was a great idea of what he does. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject, but you got to listen to Phil Henry, folks.
Absolutely.
Whether you're in on the gag or not, it's very entertaining. It's very
fantastic.
Good. Yeah, Jeff, thank you, Jeff Altman.
It's so good to see you, Moosie.
Great to see you too, my friend.
Well, Jeff, I want to say also for me, thank you, because like I said, when I first spoke to you last week, I truly was sincere. I've always been a huge fan, and it means a lot that you came on, and it was a pleasure getting to meet you like this.
Well, Jonathan, I feel the same way, and I really had a great time.
Great.
Thank you. Well, again, this has been, Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Jeff Altman. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.